And now, live from his AI-generated living room, YouTube's favorite animated giraffe and president of the 90s cartoon fan club, Giraffe Sean.
Well, hi there. It's good to see ya. Welcome to a new segment that I'd like to call Fan Mail with Sean, the part of the show where I open up a letter from one of my amazing subscribers to see what you guys have to say. Today we have a letter from
Name and address withheld.
The letter says, "Hi there, I'm a big fan and I have an idea for a video that I think will be great. There's an episode of Codename Kids Next Door where they have a secret party drinking root beer. The root beer in the episode is seen by adults as actual beer in a way. At least that's how the writers made it seem. There's an adult in the episode who seems to suffer from sensory overload and deals with his issues by drinking root beer throughout the episode. There's also some heavy implications when we learn what he's doing to all the kids who are caught drinking. I hope this letter finds you well and that this becomes a video. Take care. Sincerely,
Name and address withheld."
Wow, I completely forgot about this one. I remember the exact episode that you're talking about, and I loved it as a kid. But it's definitely been a long time since I've seen it. Thanks so much for being a subscriber and for your suggestion. This sounds like a great idea. If anyone else out there wants to be featured in Fan Mail with Sean, feel free to send an email to the address listed in the description box below. I'm always happy to hear suggestions for video ideas. For this fan letter, I've got to be honest with you guys, I censored the person's name and I paraphrased their letter because I didn't get their permission to share it word for word, so just saying if you send me any mail, feel free to specify whether or not you're okay with me sharing it with the rest of the class. I'm also contemplating opening up a P.O. box in the future so I can open up some actual fan mail on video for you guys, but we'll just see about that. But for now, let's get right into the video. Codename Kids Next Door is a fantastic show, and I have some really interesting feelings about it. I remember watching the show a ton throughout the years that I was in 3rd through 5th grade, so like 2003 to 2005, and it just sparked a different kind of joy than any other show did. For whatever reason, this show just gave me the biggest want to replicate it with my own friends. There was just something about it. Maybe it was the awesome treehouse, maybe it was the decorations, maybe it was the overall secret agent kind of vibe of the show, or, you know, maybe it was just simply the camaraderie of it all. Maybe it was the fact that I could watch this show and see myself and all of my friends filling the roles of this friend group. I mean, maybe it could be a combination of all of the above for all I know. Regardless, it's a show that I can say definitely had a really different feel from any other show running at that time. That's not even within the confines of Cartoon Network specifically. I mean, like, across all kids' cartoons. There wasn't really any show that captured the spy dynamic in the same way that Kids Next Door did. In the future, I'm definitely planning on doing some long deep dives into this show, but for now, there's one specific episode that we have sights on. It's an episode that, as lighthearted as it portrayed itself, came packed with some pretty adult implications and references. And that's why today, on our nostalgic walk down memory lane, we're gonna look at the episode of Codename Kids Next Door called Operation Pop.
Nobody's home.
I'm here to see Lime Ricky.
Number 2 walks through the bar full of kids, of which he is very popular, getting shoutouts from everyone that he walks past. He goes right up to the counter and he's greeted by the friendly barkeep who asks if he has the shipment. Number 2 says that the boys are out back unloading it now, as the barkeep slides him an envelope with a super rare Yipper number 73 card in it as payment for his delivery.
Always a pleasure doing business with the kids next door. How's about a frosty one on the house?
Well, I never say no to a cold one.
Everyone in the bar starts to panic as the feds come in to crash the party. Tables are being flipped, kids are being trapped in nets. Then a strange man in a white suit appears and the whole bar goes silent. He walks up sternly and takes the mug from number 2 as he tries a sip.
Root beer. And I assume none of you are of legal drinking age. For being in direct violation of the Soda Control Act, I am going to say that each and every one of you caffeine-crazed brats is put away for a long time.
Since you adults raised the drinking age of soda to 13, what are we supposed to drink? Prune juice?
That is not my concern.
He orders that they take the kids away, and we see him secretly chug the mug of root beer while no one's looking. We then cut on over to number 2 being interrogated by the man, who we learn is named Mr. Fizz. Number 2 tells him to give it up because he's got nothing on him.
On the contrary, I have got you with 20,000 gallons of illegal soda with intent to sell. So now, you're going to tell me where you're brewing that soda.
Get yourself an ice cream headache.
Oh! Children, if only you could bottle their delightful precociousness until they've grown up.
Number 2 tells him that he should just give it up because as long as kids are around, they'll always be drinking soda, and besides, his teammates will be there to rescue him any minute now.
You mean these teammates?
Guys?
Now I want to hear some answers.
Go suck on a straw.
Be quiet over there.
Make a soda, jerk.
What did you? I said quiet. Will you just stop it? Enough!
Mr. Fizz storms out, and as soon as he does, the kids next door are immediately plotting their escape, which, unfortunately for number 2, involves his super rare card being used to slip the lock of the door open. While that's going on, we cut on over to Mr. Fizz, who is secretly grabbing a mug and filling it with root beer. He says that it's a bit early for soda, but he needs something to calm his nerves. Once he catches sight of the kids escaping, security is immediately on their tail. They end up cutting a corner and going through a random door to hide, and they find themselves in what turns out to be a massive, sprawling, dark bottling plant.
They're bottling children.
Magnificent! My personal contribution to controlling developmental behavior.
Mr. Fizz explains that before he came along, children were completely out of control, chugging down soda like animals and getting hopped up on caffeine. He says that it was maddening for him, so he got the idea to bottle them up to control them.
2 things. 1, you crazy. And 2, nobody bottles the kids next door.
Oh, you're gonna be sore you even have...
Wait, let me explain because
Crazy.
my nerves just need...
Mr. Fizz starts blasting the kids with soda and using it to stick them to the conveyor belt. We see number 1 and number 4 get stuck as they're being pushed towards the bottling machine, but number 5 comes to save the day.
Almost there.
This ought to slow things down.
Number 2, whose side are you on anyway?
Ours? No!
Yay! I want to save the day too!
Mr. Fizz walks up and pulls the lever again, sending numbers 1, 4, and 5 through the bottler. Meanwhile, number 3 is caught on the conveyor belt running.
Perhaps you need to bottle up those anxieties.
Gotta help number 3.
Number 2 gets frustrated and pushes the lever, saying that he just can't catch a break today. When he does that, it shakes up Mr. Fizz a bit, which gives him the idea to keep shaking it back and forth until this happens.
Looks like Fizz is the end for you.
Where did you come up with this stuff?
You out of control little brat! I am going to stuff you into an extra small bottle with... What is happening?
What's wrong, Fizz? You look all shook up.
Mr. Fizz continues to panic until the barrels on his body explode in a massive burst of soda everywhere. We then cut to all of the kids in the bottling factory having a celebratory drink, while nearby number 2 is sitting with Mr. Fizz, forcing him to open every single bottle to let the kids out.
Number 5.
Don't worry, Fizz. You only got about another 100,000 bottles to go.
Number 5. Are you in there?
So this episode is one that I'm really happy aired during my peak years of watching this show, if I'm being honest. This whole scenario is, of course, being a parody of the American Alcohol Prohibition Act. It's really interesting to think that a children's show like this would tackle a subject such as alcohol prohibition. Now, I know we've seen other shows subtly do it before, but it was honestly impressive how directly they portrayed this. Personally, I find Prohibition-era tropes and references very intriguing. I really enjoyed the fact that the beginning of this episode starts at the entrance to a speakeasy. I've always wanted to visit one in real life. If you're not familiar, a speakeasy is a secret bar that would sell illegal alcohol back in the 1920s and early 1930s. They were usually hidden behind legal businesses and would require a secret password to get in. They were much more than a place to drink though. They would become a home to freedom of expression and rebellion against prohibition laws. Interestingly enough, along the way, jazz music would become synonymous with speakeasy culture as well. After 1933, they disappeared for the most part when alcohol was no longer prohibited, but in the 2000s, they would see a resurgence as speakeasy-themed cocktail bars would make a comeback. I really loved the vibe of the speakeasy, and I feel like they did a pretty good job of reflecting the kind of feel of that sort of establishment in this scene. Moving on from there though, we definitely have to take a moment to talk about Mr. Fizz. This man is just something else. First of all, I have to point out that his big issue was that kids were drinking gallons of soda and getting hopped up on caffeine. But just saying, root beer literally doesn't contain caffeine. If anything, they would have like a bit of a sugar rush and then a crash. But this guy's point is pretty much invalid based on his claim that caffeine is the root cause of the issue here. Regardless of that, it's evident that Mr. Fizz definitely deals with some sensory overload. He tends to get overstimulated, and unfortunately his answer to dealing with that isn't really a healthy one. He blows up on people and storms off, then goes for a mug of root beer to calm his nerves. It's to the point where it seems that he has possibly become dependent on root beer to handle everyday life, as that's what he reaches for immediately when he has a problem. We even see him secretly sneak a chug of root beer while he's busting the kids in the speakeasy, which is interesting to me. At first I saw that and was like, he doesn't really need to hide that, right? I mean, they didn't outlaw soda completely, they just raised the legal age to consume it. He's perfectly in his legal right to drink some soda, however, it seems that maybe he is self-conscious about his consumption habits. He felt the need to hide it from everyone, and later on he made a comment about how it's a bit too early to have it, but he needs something to calm the nerves. On top of being ashamed, it seems as if he could be trying to cover the fact that he isn't as level-headed as he plays himself off to be. Also, gotta point out, how ironic is it that the guy who drinks when he's triggered and overstimulated is bottling kids to do what he calls, quote, controlling developmental behavior, to use his own words. Like, sir, you're over here calling these kids unhinged animals, but like, what about this? You're the one who took your soda consumption to the point of literally making a body armor suit out of it, complete with soda jetpacks and root beer cannons. It grinded my gears extra hard when number 3 was running on the conveyor belt saying, "What do I do?" over and over again, and we see Mr. Fizz in his giant root beer suit jump up and tell her,
Perhaps you need to bottle up those anxieties.
like, f you, dude. He's straight up putting these children into literal bottles to deal with what he perceives as developmental behavior, and telling her to bottle up her anxiety. Meanwhile, this guy can't even handle his own. The symbolism here is just really mind-blowing if you keep an open mind towards it though. One way that
Name and address withheld.
put it is that this could be symbolic for putting them in a bottle and stripping them of their ability to be free thinkers, and I can totally see that. Kind of stifling them in their childhood and forcing them to act a certain way until they reach adulthood, and then of course you're gonna place all of your expectations on them at that point too, and expect them to be a certain way as adults as well. All in all, no matter which way you spin it, the implications that come along with this episode were pretty heavy, and I can admire the fact that all of this was hidden in plain sight so well because, to be honest, it all completely flew over my head as a kid. I didn't look even a second past surface level at this episode or think about why he needed a drink of soda to calm his nerves. Moving on from there though, I definitely want to point out that the machine in the end makes absolutely no sense. How on earth did number 3 get bottled even though the machine was off at this point? Like, number 5 didn't get bottled when she was straight up holding onto the bottling machine and it was turned off. From a continuity standpoint, this made absolutely no sense. On top of that, when we see number 2 messing with the lever in the end, it no longer just turns it on and off, it actually controls which direction the conveyor belt goes. This one was just a small goof that I couldn't overlook. Another thing on top of that I have to point out is the way that number 2 has the best puns. I completely forgot about that trope in his character, and throughout the series we would see him dropping some of the all-time greatest dad jokes and puns. I couldn't help but wonder why they named the bad guy Mr. Fizz and not Dr. Fizz. I feel like Dr. Fizz could have been much more fitting as it's a clear reference to Dr. Pepper. However, Mr. Fizz does sound incredibly close to Mr. Pibb, so maybe that's what they were going for. But what do you think? Did you watch this show as a kid? What was your favorite episode? Let me know in the comments down below. I always love seeing your guys' feedback. As per written decree, I have to give a massive shout out to my patrons in the true 90s kids tier. You guys are the absolute sweetest, and I really appreciate you. My Patreon link is in the description box below, feel free to check it out. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave me a comment letting me know what you think and give some praise to the YouTube algorithm in hopes that it pushes this video to everyone else. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.